Lights, camera, action.
Hi, in this video I'm going to explain to you how to add a node to a list already created, and the node will be added at the end of the list. Here is an example of the execution of the code. So first you give the first name, family name, the age, and finally the node will be added at the end of the list. Say Johnny or John Doe and 53. So here is my previous list that I've already created in the previous video, and after adding the node I traversed the list and I added this last node. As you can see, it's added at the end of the list. So in the previous video I showed you how to create a linked list from the user input, and this one I'm going to show you how to add an element of this created linked list. So I'm going to retrieve the linked list from a file I've already created of that contains a list already created. This is the file. I will add a node to the end of this list, and then I will save this this newly created list to a new file. But before that I will have to retrieve this linked list from my file. To do this, I will simply first create a linked list corresponding to the information or to the node stored in the file I'm going to retrieve from it the list. So first I will have to create the first node that will correspond to the head of my list. Then in the corresponding loop, since I'm going to loop through the file, I'm going to read the values of each node and create a link for that. Create the links corresponding to this list. I'm not going to fully explain this loop, since I've already explained the principle of retrieving a linked list from a file. You can see the link in the description below. But there is some differences between this code and the previous one. So the first one is that for the head of the list, I'm going simply to assign only the address of this node, but the other values will be assigned inside the loop and not outside the loop. The second difference is that for my loop I will use only one condition or one test, and this test, instead of testing the end of my file, I'm going to use the value returned by the fread function. So if I'm not able, or if the fread will not return one element thread, I also talked about this in the video about retrieving a linked list from a file. So if it's different than one, it will mean that I reached the end of the file and I can exit the file, so I will not create more nodes. The drawback of this method is that I will have to create an additional node, but it will not cause a problem, since when I will exit the loop I will assign again the null value for my last node to the next element of my last node. I will close the file since I'm not going to use it anymore. Then I will have just to create a new node, link it to my list, and traverse the list again to save it to my new file. But to add the new node, I have to add it since I'm inserting the node to the end of my list. I have to have the address of the last node. In this case, I already have the address of the last node, but in general, you may use this node or this value, or you may not have this value. You may have only a linked list, only the head of your linked list, and you want to access to the you don't have the address of the last node and you need it to link it to the last node. So this is why I added this traverse loop So this way you will be sure to have the address of the last node. I'm using 2 nodes, 1 person, which will represent the previous node of the last accessed node. So when the last node will be equal to null, the previous node will represent the last node. So this way I'm sure that one person, the node 1 person, will have the address of my last node. Again, this was not necessary since I've already had this value from when I exited the loop and when I created my linked list. But now to add the new node, I will have to create a new one. How to create it? Just by allocating space. I've already also created or talked in a video corresponding to creating or to allocating memory to a structure. Then I will have to fill my node with the values given by the user. The same as statement I've used in the previous video, but here for the ID, since I'm creating a new node to an already existing list, the idea is just to add the ID following, or the value that immediately follows the last ID value. So if I have a list with the last node having an ID equal to 6, for example, so the new node will have the ID equal to 7. You can use different methods, but this way you'll be sure that you will have a value greater than the one of the last node, or the biggest value of the list. After creating the node, and I've already linked the newly created node to my linked list, so now I can save this node to a new file and print it out to the screen. Again, I'm not going to explain this since I've already explained it in the previous videos. So if you have questions about this code or other subject related to the C language or to this linked list in particular, please let me know in the comment below. Bye.